All right, welcome to the Marketing Madman. Nick Constantino here. We got a special episode for you, and I say special because this is another one of those I have learned a lot. It's been necessary for me to learn. So let me introduce the Mad Caddy, Matt Caddy. Matt, how you doing, bud?
Good. Thank you for having me on.
Blast to have you. So, okay, before we get into the nitty gritty of this, introduce yourself briefly. Talk about what led you to the role you're in today before you divulge that, because I want to be able to have this grand rollout. So talk a little bit about the work you've done previously that led to the current iteration of the company.
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So my background, I've been in the digital marketing space for a long time, about a decade, primarily focused on SEO. Search was kind of like my passion. I love the internet, wanted to figure out how to control that, how to get the results we wanted. And as everything evolved, AI came around, started seeing the writing on the wall in terms of what that looked like, how we're gathering information, where it's going. And so really kind of looked at the next evolution of what search is. Very exciting, that it happens to be with AI, and started to kind of shift my focus over there. I've built and sold agencies, built teams, been in this space for quite a bit of time before venturing on my own for about the last 5 years, serving as a consultant for some pretty large brands, and now just looking forward to this next evolution of search.
Yeah, man. So if you haven't figured it out, we are talking about, let's call it SEO/AEO/GEO. And I'm going to have you go through each of those because I think, like any ripe new industry, there's so many bad actors and so many people trying to take advantage and so much of that. So really what we're talking about is SEO used to be just you having a website to start. And then it became blogs, and then it became images, and then it became videos, and then it became schema, and then it became Google My Business, and then it became where are we searching, what are we doing? That is now evolving, where the structure of the data has to be more respondent to someone searching AI. So tell me about this, or I want to know this. And the easiest way for me to say it, and then I want you to elaborate, is as human beings, we used to have our own consideration sets. Now we are turning our consideration sets over to the machines to process a lot of the work that we didn't want to do, right? So as an easy example, I'm about to hit a plane to go to Puerto Rico. I used to have to manually go on Yelp, cross-reference with Google, find distances. Now you can literally plug in, here's my airport, here's my hotel, ask me 5 questions, plan me out an itinerary. And it will do all of that work for you more precisely. Probably more margin for error because you're leaving a lot to a machine, but the more specific you are with it, it works the same way with the internet. These people are allowing the AI to do the search criteria. So as to where you used to say, show me the best plumber and be lists of plumbers, now it summates and says, here's the best plumber, here's why, here's this. So it's upended business. So talk a little bit about, just let's give a timeline. So, give us the year that we started seeing AEO come in, where it's more important for those answers. And now when we're in this generative engine and kind of the differences, I think that would be very helpful.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so I think, when OpenAI came out first, ChatGPT, it was exciting. To your point there, being able to get into a system and say, hey, I want you to solve this problem for me, and it to deliver all the answers. I think at the end of the day, as humans, it's user experience that we're really after, right? The fewest amount of clicks to solve my problem. And so with Google, they solved that problem for a long time with us, right? Like, optimizing it, we got the blue links, we got the descriptions. Awesome, this is what I want. But over time, it's turned into more conversational. And so what ChatGPT or other AIs have solved for us now is, I want you to solve this problem for me, and how should I do it, and provide that information. And so the exciting thing about that is, for businesses, it's a whole new frontier of getting in front of customers in a quicker way. And especially with OpenAI now doing things in ChatGPT, we're able to do instant purchase out of their instant purchase on the platform. It's just very exciting. And so last year is when I started flipping my focus. I kind of saw, like I said, the writing on the wall. I saw, hey, brands are looking at this. A lot of the bigger brands we had, I started noticing ChatGPT traffic trickling in. And so I took it upon myself to say, okay, how do we make this work? And so it really does dive down to, when we look at our AEO, we look at our GEO, we look at SEO, how they all kind of work and commingle together. The main thing that you want to focus on is, your crawlability, right? Is the information crawlable? Do you have all the right best practices? The great thing about that is things like structured data or schema, that's been around for a long time. Google's been pushing that for a long time. And when I first got into SEO, I just thought, hey, I'm going to learn this. It's something they asked for. They have a whole portion of the website dedicated to that. So I started teaching that, or learning that myself. And so now where we're at is, now they're saying, hey, you have to have this on your site. And so it's just exciting to be able to basically mark up everything on the site, make sure everything's crawlable. You know, you got your LLM.txt files. You're basically saying, hey, when you crawl my site, this is how I want you to do it. So it gives you a lot of control that way. And then in terms of when you're generating GEO and tracking which prompts you're in and actually organizing your content, now getting the importance of, hey, you know, we all knew in SEO your header structure is important, but now it's highly important. How is the structure on your page? And so I look at things now as each page is almost a database, right? We want the crawlers to pull from information from that, make sure that everything's marked up. And so in your case of Solomon Brothers, we've got jewelry, right? So when the AI is crawling for that, are we telling them how to properly clean it? Are we telling them the material? Are we telling them everything that they're going to
There's so much more that goes into it. And I think the biggest thing for me, what I'm realizing is that it has to all live in one place and be easy to go to, right? So like most business owners are really good at their one thing. They don't know you need the full gamut of the business. You need to know credit terms. You need to know that we offer extending support, but you can't just hit them in the face and say extended warranty. You have to talk about why the warranty is important and what could go wrong, because the way it pulls information is differently. I mean, and like, look, let's go back. I mean, the reason that SEO exists, everyone gets it wrong, right? Look, it exists because Google wants to make money, and the easiest way for them to make money is to serve hyper-relevant information to the people in which are searching it, so they spend more time on it. There's no other way around it, right? And it's algorithms that say what you will about it, but the day of just paying a ton of money to Google don't exist anymore. Now, that being said, let's call a spade a spade. If you pay Google more, they're more lenient with you, and I'm never going to have anyone arguing with that. Meta, the second you start paying, all of a sudden it's amazing how quickly some of these gears turn that weren't turning before, right? Any of them, Reddit, they shut down every page. All of a sudden you start paying, and it's like, we've accepted every single thing you've done. Like, we don't have to lie about it. Money makes anything go. But all of a sudden now you're starting to see some of these things that if somebody went on Google and it gave it the wrong information, they're going to go to DuckDuckGo or something else, right? You got to look at Bing nowadays because of the ChatGPT ownership stake that Microsoft has. You'd be a fool not to believe Bing is going to be incorporated into this to some capacity, right? There are all these little nuances that I'm not saying you got to be an expert on, but I think the terminology I use to be a marketer today, you have to know enough to be dangerous in every facet of business, of web design. If you don't, you are relying on other people, and that's where we're going to come to the bad actors. So you and I have developed a relationship which makes this easier, right? Like, I'm not micromanaging. We got together and say, this is the end goal. I'm not necessarily care how you get there. All I care is that along the way you drop nuggets for me so I understand the process, right? That's not how most of this works. Most of the times it's a completely ignorant marketing person who's going to a company who's baiting them in with some completely ridiculous phrases like, make your GEO go up 66,000% in day one, based on one case study that happened in Anchorage, Alaska on a Tuesday while there was a complete solar blackout. Like, it's just insane. So talk a little bit about, I want to get into some best practices of what people can do because I want to be helpful, but talk about what to look out for. Talk about what a lot of these companies that just popped up out of nowhere are doing to bait you in and why they're not doing what is necessary for what we're talking about here.
Definitely, absolutely, yeah. And to piggyback on that, you're absolutely right. When we something I think that's important when we look at like the importance of the crawlers and SEO and the differences about making sure you're doing things right is like even in understanding you know, the crawl time on the website. How much more computing power does it take for an AI to crawl a slower website versus a faster loading website? So those are some of the things that I look at a detailed level, because it all does kind of add up to that. And so some of the best practices, first starting with that, is, you know, start with your site speed. I know they've always pushed that, you know, for a long time, but I got to look at it like, hey, OpenAI, you know, everyone's been on ChatGPT or other AIs. It's like, hey, you're programming too fast. Wait, that's their signal saying they're computing at a high level. And so at the same time, when they're crawling a website, they're trying to surface an answer, they're trying to get something, maybe it's a deep scan. How long does it load the website? You know, things like that do add up, and understanding, you know, that, you know, we all know it matters to load it fast, but now it's like it's actually taking computing power to do that. So I think the first thing is just make sure you have a fast loading website. I know that's a broken record. Everyone in SEO said that, but now we actually have hard data tied to exactly why now from the AI point of view. The second thing is make sure you mark up the structured data on your website. Go to schema.org and do it. It takes time to mark up your entire website, and there's ways that we do what we do, especially we're working with Solomon Brothers there, is, you know, we want to automate this site-wide so that way you're pulling new fields. You have 5,000 products. You need to make sure they have all best practices. No need to do that one at a time. It should be deployed site-wide. because those are standard now. They need to crawl and understand the website as quickly as possible. And to understand how they may see it is go click on any of your web pages and right click and save the page as. Look at all the HTML. That's exactly what they're crawling when they look at your website. So it gives you a lot of insights into actually what they see, and that's why it's super, super important.
But like, don't pretend like we don't need you to understand what those codes are. Understand that it is a numbers game. And it's funny because like when you talk about things like page speed, it's almost counterintuitive, right? Because you're compressing images down. They don't look as good. The videos look blurry, but it's just with any technology, we've moved so fast that the speed of the servers are calling into question, the speed of your computer. I mean, there's so many things here that it's amazing. Like, it's almost that, again, perfect is the enemy of good. Like, you're not striving for perfection right now. You are striving to play these games, get as much information out, making it as digestible as possible, which also makes some of the original things, right? Like, that's why brand marketing is so important right now. All these companies that spend all this time in their performance marketing, who do you think is getting annihilated right now? I see it every day in every direction. Two companies. One are the companies that spend all their time on operations. You can be the best operational company. AI doesn't understand your operations business at all. It understands a directory, and it's trying to create a directory. And number two are the ones that just unloaded everything into Google Ads and Meta. They spend everything on performance. They have no brand whatsoever. You want to know why Salomon Brothers will be okay? 75% of my traffic come in people searching Salomon Brothers. What is AI going to do there? Do you know how much money it would cost for somebody to come in and steal Salomon Brothers, which is not illegal to do? They could call it Salomon Sisters, and they would never. The barrier to entry is so high. So part of the reason I say it is because I don't want to get lost in this is one part of the marketing funnel, right? So when you do this stuff, it's not like stop everything you're doing and go GEO. Matt and I, when we started talking, my thought was, because I had just started doing this 7 months ago, 8 months ago, was I want to put 10% of my budget to future proofing. Okay. What I did not think, what it was going to come so quickly, that what was me future proofing 8 months ago is already now proofing, and we're in it. But that being said, you also have been good enough to show me how we go versus some of our competitors, and we're so far ahead of them without even really turning the juice on yet that it's also so. Again, this is like we always talk about in the show. This is part of a full funnel approach. There are tools you can use. I've been blown away by how powerful press releases are. Yes. For example, when I search our other show that we started, Legacy of Luxury, if I searched that 5 years ago, it would have taken years for the algorithms to catch it. I search it, and because we put out a press release, it pulled exactly from the press release and says, Legacy of Luxury is a new show with this, this, and this, right? Yep. It doesn't work if there's only one place, but a good paid press release should have thousands of people. So the internet, it's almost forcing you to crawl it. So those are little things that I think, and I think a lot of it's stuff you can do yourself, but you just got to be deliberate with your intention. Like, wake up one day and be like, look, first of all, anything you do with SEO is going to help GEO. Anything you do with GEO is going to help with SEO, right? We woke up and all of a sudden now, what was it, 2 weeks ago, that Gemini was #1 in Apple. It had already passed ChatGPT. Google wasn't going to lose this game, right? We've seen that. Too many blockbuster videos, too many Xerox and Kodaks, too many of these companies that have not adapted. That is not going to be Google. They are so far ahead of this. And you see the gear starting to turn, right? Like, you start seeing now their image generation and blah, 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 blah. So I think be part of a full funnel approach. All right, so 100%. You gave some good advice there. Talk a little bit about Reddit, because I was shocked to see when I saw that Reddit is being pulled, that AI is pulling 45% of its content from Reddit. Now, I have to imagine that was because for a long time Reddit was not advertising based, and that if I was a betting man, the advertising of it is going to drop that ranking down because it's going to start being filled with more nonsense and stuff you could pay for. But talk about now how important that is and why it's pulling from something like Reddit.
No, for sure. Yeah, for sure. It's see, Reddit's interesting, because you look at Reddit, it could be a form of an echo chamber, kind of like looking at it, but you realize the power that's behind user generated content. And so with something like Reddit, is you have an infinite amount of subreddits where people are confirming pieces of information, asking questions, they're getting a response, and then you're looking at people who've had accounts and they're saying, hey, this is the one that's most likely. I mean, there's game shows based on that same logic, right? Like, you don't know the answer, you ask the crowd. 75% of the crowd says
be prepared. Be prepared when you ask. Like Twitter's a cesspool, but Twitter's a cesspool with 3 sentences. I went into a Reddit on a jewelry chain of a guy asking why the girl he was dating smelled so bad, and it was a novel about the smell. And I honestly, I was reading, I go, I go, honestly, I don't know if this is a fetish thing. I don't know why people are reading this, but it was one of the trendiest Reddit. And I was like, okay, like, and also be prepared that whatever you post, you're going to get people who are just going to lambast it and just like, it just come to terms with it. You never want to see peek behind the curtain of the internet.
100%, exactly. Basically it's a true example of a double-edged sword. Like, and it's, and both Google, OpenAI, they're all indexing of that, because at the end of the day, it's the same way. How many decisions are based off of reviews, right? What are the reviews? It's the same thing with user-generated content. Someone says, hey, what's the best this over here? And you've got everyone confirming that's what it is. Chances are that's going to be something that you want to take a look at. And so with the power of user-generated content and peer-proofing it, they do see the power in that. And so I'm sure with a lot of the other stuff that's going there, as they're indexing it, they're filtering a lot out. But to its core, it's a good source to actually generate answers, because at the end of the day, your peers saying, when they're rating it up. And the great thing about it too is everyone knows how crazy the mods are in Reddit, right? Like, you think you're trying to answer a great question, next thing you know, you're getting yelled at 50 times and your whole account's banned. Like, so they do a good job at making sure that, hey, if it's something that's in there, or if someone's trying to gamify the system, it's had this system in place for so long that's already good at removing a lot of things. And so I'm very curious about, to your point earlier, like how much crap's just going to get wiped out, like just with, the last 3 months, everyone dumping it, the rest of the year dumping it. So
yeah, and I'm curious because, like, look, it doesn't happen anymore. It's much harder now. But there was a time where they were just everyone was buying reviews, right? Amazon is like, it's just a cesspool of fake reviews. And then they started putting sites that will catch the fake reviews, and then they started reviewing the sites that caught the reviews. So like, I think these levels of authenticity, everything becomes capitalism at some point, which is why you brought up a good point about ChatGPT being able to make purchases from it. Yeah, they get a cut. We finally got there. We know why. Like, that $20 a month from those 10 million people, God forbid that was enough. So the shareholders want more, and they're about to go public. It's going to be the first company, OpenAI, at $1 trillion valuation. Okay, think about that.
With profit, right? They come out, they're like, we're not
with nothing,
for profit. So it's
gonna change everything. But again, this is where I say know enough to be dangerous. You got to predict the future a little bit, right? Like, one of the things I was shocked by is all you talk about with Elon Musk and what a crazy person he is. X is still crazy influential in all this. It's more than Facebook. I mean, it's just crazy to again. And I'm not saying be neurotic like me and log into all of these things 3 times a day to get a feel for what's going on out there. But I am saying, if you are relying on somebody else in your business to do this work for you, or God forbid an agency to do this work for you, they're not going to do it. No. They're not going to do it. They have 20 employees that are spinning 50 accounts, that their time is not optimized. There's nothing in it for them besides the paycheck. They're not trying to learn and push it. So you have to be dangerous. You have to know enough yourself. What else? What do you see the next couple of months looking like? What do you think obviously there's plenty of tips and but what do you think, how does this pan out? Are they going to keep talking about it? Are there going to be more and more companies coming into this space? Are they going to see old SEO agencies go out of business? Or are they going to adjust? What do you see the kind of the marketplace and business look like?
No, definitely, yeah. And so I see, and so one thing is the great thing about GEO, or whatever this new role is going to be that kind of works along with the SEO specialist, is to your point earlier, it's just another piece of the pie. You're still going to have the need for SEO. It's still highly important, even if for some reason Google search dropped 50% of their search volume, and they still controlled 50% of the search. That's a substantial amount of revenue that you still need someone in SEO to make sure you're there. And so what I see a lot of SEO agencies actually bringing this on as another service added on to their existing services. And so one thing that I did a bit differently, being in the SEO world for so long, is I wanted to focus purely on how do I understand how AI search works? How do I master this completely? And then working with other agencies, whether it's training their team, whether they're saying, hey, we need you to bring you on as a partner and kind of help us with these specific type of accounts. But to me, I see it continuing to grow into a true role. I see it now in the industry. People are hiring GEO experts. They're basically hiring somebody, hey, I need you to help fix AI search. I see it under inbounds all the time. But I would say it's funny. The number one request that I get right now is Reddit influencing. That's the number one I think I see right now. Is everyone kind of, I don't know if it's like whether it's a hot keyword or everyone's like, I need to get on Reddit. I think what it is because there's a million tools that track your prompts and they all show the same thing. Every citation is being referenced as Reddit. And so that's why over the next few months, at least to the end of the quarter, I'm very curious to see what Reddit looks like in terms of a bunch of spam coming in, Are they going to
Yeah.
release notes saying, hey, we fixed this problem? So
Yeah, because that's the other downfall of this, right? Because you have AI, you're asking AI what you should do, and if it tells everybody to do the same thing, one of the things that I find the most fascinating, okay, like, so unfortunately, marketers today want to sit in a high castle and just make strategy. Okay, this is the name of the game. I mean, I can't tell you how many events I go to, and I'm just sitting there. I'm like, man, this is a freaking circle jerk of people telling each other how awesome they are. There's no thought leader. No one's doing anything because they don't want to do the work. When you get into it, man, when you sent me over those 17 pages of code, that is work. That is
Yes.
not AI generated. That is work. When you look at how hard it is to get backlinks, even to make the AI agents to write articles to the right parameters. Like, this is work. This is manual labor. Anyone you believe that is automating these systems is lying to you. What it's doing is getting the lowest hanging garbage fruit, which, to be honest with you, doesn't help your authority score. Look, I'm not saying when you're a business brand new, yeah, automate everything. But if you want to play with the big boys and start getting to that level, one of the things I found fascinating is since I've taken this role over, it almost doesn't even look at some of my local competitors. Like, it's like, don't even worry about these idiots. Like, they're putting me with Diamonds Direct and Rare Carrot and the big corporate. That's who I'm going after. So I don't know if that, because we don't even sell online. So I don't know if that's we're just playing in a different league. I don't know if it's the amount of money we're spending, but you see these things. And I also think that one of the really cool things that if you look at digital and all the stuff we're talking about, it used to be you have to spend $100,000 to do market research, right? Do you know how much market research a $10,000 Google campaign will give you if you give it the time to just learn keywords, competitors, time of year? Like, you don't have to be a rocket science to know that the jewelry industry is going to spend more around Christmas, but to get an idea, and the biggest compliment to me, all competitors are doing is trying to come in and buy my keywords.
Yep.
The Solomon Brothers keyword is spiking, and they're all fighting for it. So I'm like, you know what, you idiots, you fight for it. I'm not going to buy my own keyword. They trust us. We have all this other stuff. We have all these other mechanisms. So,
and to your point there, just to interject, is I do see a correlation to brand search on Google and to AI search results too. It does. If the brand is recognized, like the search volume you're saying earlier is pretty massive, it correlates pretty closely. And so, so I think it's important when to your point earlier, it's like, focus on your branding. What do people know about your brand? I mean, that's one of the specific LMTX2 files we create is a brand specific. So when the AI crawls a website, we want them to know exactly who you are and exactly who you're trying to get in front of and what problem you solve. And so I think that they correlate together. Whether it's your branding, whether it's your SEO, whether it's your GEO.
yeah.
So
Even the ads, man. Even the ads. If they've heard of you before, they're more likely to click on you out of the three. I mean, it's again, this is not rocket science. This is not human nature. You always go towards familiarity, even if you don't know what Solomon Brothers does. You just heard Solomon Brothers. You're like, oh, how many moving companies are there? Like Braves Movers, Falcon Movers. They're not. They have nothing to affiliate. They just, you can't lock off that. So I think really, my question for you now is that I understand one of the differences between, well, branding as a whole, but GEO, SEO, all these different things is the investment you pay gradually grows and builds, as opposed to something like Google Ads. When you shut it off, it falls off a cliff. And I try to explain to people, like, look, if you're looking at Google Ads as an advertising source, you're a fool. Google Ads is the yellow pages, is the capture saw, is the net. You have to set out all the lures, but Google is that they're just clever enough that they're making you pay to use the net. Right? Like, it's the biggest con ever. But we'll talk another time, and I know I'm going to be shut down and it's not going to go viral for saying this, but I will tell you right now that I promise you Meta and Google at some point will go back in history and will be complicit in some of the greatest fraud this country has ever seen. The way they perpetrate fraudulent information and allow it to go, and the search, it's just insane. But
agree.
that being said, all that being said, if I'm why am I still using it? The answer is because of the brand I have, the return on investment I get is so, it's insane not to use it.
Yep.
So, but talk a little bit about how the GEO investment grows and amplifies. It's not just something that you pay and like it stops. Like, if you stop, you probably won't. And now look, the timeline sped up a little bit, but you probably won't start seeing detriment for 6 months, year, 2, 5 years, depending on how much you have established. So talk a little bit about that, how, like, if you're selling somebody who's like, hey, look, I have $1,500. I'm going to either use you or I'm going to go pay for ads. First off, if you have $1,500, you think it's going to help you with ads, you're out of your freaking mind. But talk a little bit about, unless you're in like a town of 300 people, talk a little bit about how GEO, SEO, even some brand marketing pays longer term dividends, and how important it is to have those in a line before you start doing some real performance marketing.
No, for sure, yeah, and that's a good point. I always correlate that back to the early SEO days. It's like SEO. The brands that adopted SEO and Google search early on did very well. There was a lot of brands that was slower to adoption. There was now it's like you have to have it, right? You're either using a consultant, you have in-house, you have an agency. Now we all know that SEO is one of the highest ROIs in any marketing stack, and so with GEO, what GEO is GEO is actually moving a lot faster than what we would have said with Google Search. Google Search was, no one knew about that. They're like, I'm not using that, I'm going to the Yellow Pages.
And I would venture to say that's because Google Search had one entity, and now AI has people competing for the space. And I bet it comes, either they buy each other out, but you're not going to see a pace of 6 of these competitors. That's not how this country works. So I think that the pace will slow eventually. First of all, just seeing how bad they botched GPT-5 makes me think the pace is going to slow, because that was not a good system. I mean, it breaks, it freezes, it hangs. It does worse for me than GPT-4 was. So that was a the corporate board of directors saying, get this out now. I don't care. But sorry, keep going.
No, you're good. Yeah, and that's a good point too. It is relying on it as we rely more onto this. Whether it's our daily search, whether it's how do I cook a piece of steak, whatever we're relying on it at the point where if they have a bad release or it's pulling bad data or whatever, that's something just to be reminded of. But in terms of the business, brands right now that are adopting it, I personally think are going to be, in a much better spot, even than the earlier brands that did Google back in the day. Everyone knew Google back in the day. I think right now, it's a must for any brand. You have to get behind it, even if you're not seeing the growth immediately. It's just like anything. Everyone knows when you start SEO, you have no traffic. You're not going to get sales your next day. It takes time to deliver best practices. You're competing against brands that have been around for a long time, right?
Yeah. But let me ask you this question, because I think this is really important. Isn't that also a competitive advantage to an extent? Because one of the things I understand is that SEO in its first wasn't about locality. GEO is about local and relevant. So you can, as a little guy that is playing in this game, compete with some of the bigger guys. That wasn't the case when SEO started, because locality, they had to take time to figure out. People don't want national companies, or they don't want to be about things that are 200 miles away from them. It took time for the internet to figure that out. So as much as that's true, isn't that an advantage for a local company that can start playing these games? Isn't it an advantage for a small company to be an early adopter of this? Isn't there something about that that's just almost like a great equalizer?
100%. Yeah. Like I said, every business that's in business should be, whether you're down from a plumber, whether you're a large brand, because to your point it's in my opinion, it's easier to see the best practices. It's easier to see exactly why these results were chosen for the prompts. And prime example of that is we work with a lot of cannabis brands, a lot of local. They've got a combination of e-commerce mixed with their door-to-door, whether it's delivery or it's an in-person establishment. And we're seeing brands come in, we're setting up best practices, and they're able to take advantage massively of their AI search. Their SEO is lagging a little bit behind, but you've got brands that do great in SEO that have no AI search because they're not programming right. And so we've seen a lot of local brands specifically.
And I would argue, unfortunately, that's because the cannabis space has become commoditized, right? Everyone's selling the same stuff, so it's just a race to the bottom of price. There are very few established brands. They're all so new that it's really it just becomes a price sensitivity. If everyone's selling the same stuff, especially because they're all buying the same garbage. A lot of them, where it's not even legalized, are buying the same garbage hemp stuff. So I mean, that's another problem, right? Like cannot
think about it though. It goes to if say 50 brands in the city are competing and 49 of them have been around for a long time and they're all selling the trash, but then one comes in and gets set up with a properly, and now they're the one that is selling the product a lot more. Even within 6 months, brands that have been doing it for years are able to beat them out on AI search.
That's a good point. What you're saying is that the mechanisms amplify the word of mouth, which has always been the strongest form of advertising. I think that's a really good way to put it. GEO, that's why you go to something like Reddit. Reddit is word of mouth. It's people sharing information. As much as reviews are, I don't think people trust that Google is doing anything out of the goodness of their heart anymore, because they're such a monstrosity of a company. That's a really good point. I think I'm going to use that. It is better attuned to amplify word of mouth advertising. 100%. All right, so I want to leave it with this, because I think you've been super helpful. talk about the biggest players in the space. So your Perplexities, your Claude, talk about some of those and talk about on the back end what you're seeing and kind of the difference. So very quickly, I see, like, I use Copilot, which is off GPT, but because it works with Microsoft. So Microsoft is going to do their damnedest to make sure anybody in a business space leans as much into Microsoft as possible, right? It already starting to read LinkedIn. It's doing all these tools that really, if it wanted to, it could block bots from crawling LinkedIn. It's not gonna, but it could. Google tends to be like Google does, trying to get out ahead of this, and they're very focused on video and video generation and stuff like that, where they know their investments can pay the advantage. You know, OpenAI was a leader. Perplexity seems to be more advanced thought and research. Talk about what you've seen from the back end about how these tools differ.
No, absolutely, yeah, and I think that's a good point, because you see a lot of software out there that's like, hey, we market everything from Perplexity to Claude to ChatGPT to Grok, whatever you're trying to use. But at the end of the day, similar to search engines, the majority of people are using one, and it's ChatGPT right now. There's a lot of people that are using Perplexity, Copilot. I use Claude often for any kind of data that I'm using. But in terms of first to market, early to market, ChatGPT was kind of like the brand that came out. And so when people think of, hey, I want to look up something, it's ChatGPT. And even some of the brands that we have, sites that are getting 2 million visits a month, 98% of all that traffic is coming from ChatGPT, which is astonishing. And so what we do when we go about our strategies, we start with ChatGPT. That's the first thing that we do. We spend a lot of time diving in, a lot of A/B testing to kind of figure out what we need to do. But that's the platform that we primarily focus on, because we look at it as, hey, people go to Google for search. We know people are going to ChatGPT for search. And we correlate that to the data that we have available to us. And so when it comes to Perplexity, Claude, anything like that, we truly think of it as kind of like how Google is, right? If you're dominating, you're doing well on Google with your SEO. If you're doing well and you're getting surfaced on ChatGPT, generally you're going to be ranking across your other LLMs. Granted, that's not always the case. We track everything in detail across quite a few of them, but we spend most of our time trying to understand to get in front of the ChatGPT, just because we see that having the highest ROI for the clients.
Yeah, so that's what I brought up earlier, where you think there's going to be I think there's going to be consolidation, right? These guys, the evaluations to some of these companies, if ChatGPT is doing 90% of the traffic and they're at $1 trillion valuation, right? Then yeah, there's $100 billion out there. Don't get me wrong. There's $100 million, there's $1 billion, there's lots of money, but there's not enough money to be going at the pace of expansion that we're going at right now. So I also imagine, like, Microsoft has that huge investment in OpenAI. There's going to be other people that come in, like, your Larry Ellisons. Like, you see this just happening everywhere, right? All of a sudden you merge TikTok with the right AI company, and I think Perplexity was the one that was going to buy Chrome. Like, if you start seeing all these things, and like, that was another great example of how dumb we are as a country. Like, so Chrome, if Google has Chrome, they're a monopoly, but you're going to sell Chrome for $300 billion. Well, who do you think is going to be able to afford Chrome? Somebody else who has a monopoly. Yes. So we're in the new Gilded Age. These are too big to fail. Like, we're never going to be able to go backwards. And I encourage people, do not put your head in the sand. Start with the easiest things. But for me, the big aha moment was recently, believe it or not. It was 5 or 6 months ago, where I read a book, and it's like, look, you're looking at this all wrong. This is not, AI is not questions. AI asks you the questions. Give it the parameters and have it ask you the questions to give you the best answer. You are the thought leader. You are the leader. This is just a tool. I see everybody talking to it like it's the boss. And that is, one, when the machines are going to rise up. But two, also, don't be scared, man. Do you know how many times I have an ATA 2000 16 gigabyte graphics card. I have a i9 with the computer as good as it comes. The whole computer freezes on me because I'm running prompts so hard. It doesn't know what to do. It just stops. Yep. So it's not there yet. The machines are not taking over. It's gotten immensely better. It is crazy to see how much better it is at doing graphics and context, but we're not near there. Dip your toe in the sand. Start with simple tasks. Learn from it. Program, but I could see why advertising industry is terrified. I have replaced the job of 10 people with one bot who just learns more and more and more and more and more, and it's starting to preemptively say, do this, and then now you see it's learning, like adding to memory, so you can program it to do these things. So my advice is, especially if you're going to use GEO, the only way to really do it is to learn the tools, right? If you're doing SEO and you don't understand how Google Tag Manager works, you got a big problem. And I think it's one of the advantages that I've taken. I design our web, I'm doing the scripts, I'm doing the tech, and yes, it's exhausting and I'm killing myself mentally, but think about it. Who's going to screw me over right now? It's very hard. And you know, the way you know when you've succeeded is when you ask a question and people just hang up the phone or stop answering you because like, uh-oh, let's go find another dummy. Like, and I say it, I'm like, look, there's a lot of dummies out there. I'm not one of them. Either fix this or hang up and like, you just got to be smart and dangerous. So why don't you leave it with some final thoughts and then give us, give everyone a way to find you in case this stuff is appealing and it's something they want to do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think a final thought is just, it's the thing that you said earlier about, when everyone has ChatGPT, it's learning about you as the user. It learns about you. It understands your prior, your prompts, your language style, everything along those lines. And so you have to understand the importance for a brand to make sure that they're investing in something. So that way, when someone does, they are looking for recommendations and your brand is being listed, it is important to get in there early because, next time they're asking questions or next time they're having similar prompts like that, it's going to surface things that are important to them within those prompts. So I implore every brand, make sure that you're at least looking into this, play around with it, ask ChatGPT or any other LLM, what do you know about my brand? And just start with that alone because the earlier you can get in there, the more prompts, the more accounts you can lock in there, just the easier it's going to be as things just start scaling and things turn into instant purchasing, instant booking, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So
Money's always going to be involved. Before you say where to find you, as we talk about every single thing that we've spoken about, talk a little bit about like unfortunately this country requires instant gratification for everything. Just for a quick second, explain the time and how this works and how there are guardrails in place for it to not work quickly. Talk a little bit about just, you can't imagine this to expect this to work overnight. This is a 6-month, year, 18-month process. You'll always see gradual lift, but you're never going to see that exponential clip. If you do, go on Google Ads. Again, you'll see it, but it'll drop off as fast as it comes on. So just so you manage expectations, talk a little bit about time frame and the work required to do this and how come it's not just something that can be immediately done.
Absolutely, yeah, and that's a good point. Mentioning bad actors, it's like in the SEO world, right? It's like there's a lot of great SEOs and there's a lot of SEOs that unfortunately do bad practices that can affect entire brands. And so I think right now with GEO being the new hot topic and ranking in ChatGPT, I implore brands be cautious, right? Just like SEO, there's people who are just trying to make a quick buck, saying, "Hey, we're going to do these 10 things. It might look good to you, and it's going to help you, but it could actually harm you." And so I think it's important to really understand, when you're meeting with somebody, to ask those right questions. Because just like in SEO, people right now are just saying, "Hey, I took a course. I know how to do this. I don't go down that route. Work with the professionals." Ask them the questions, make them show results, especially with something as new as this, and to give you an idea of what that looks like. Our first month when we do our analysis, we do an entire AEO, so we analyze the pages on a website to understand exactly how the AI see them. And we're not just talking about ChatGPT. We start with ChatGPT, we go down to Perplexity, go down to Grok. We want to understand exactly how they see them, and then how they correlate that together. And so, just starting with that. And then understanding, okay, this is what we need to have on this page. And so then we needed to understand it by category. And so then we're creating custom code, as where it needs to be deployed site-wide. So that way we say, hey, these are the best practices for necklaces, for instance. So now we need to make sure that's deployed across every single necklace page. But it doesn't just stop with that. Something that we do is we actually monitor every single page against competitors. So that way we say, hey, this is a top competitor that right now is surfacing an answer. This is where we're at. What are we missing? And so you can imagine, just doing that. And AI is a tool, but to be great as a marketer, you have to use the tool. Don't let the tool become you, right? People just use AI, write a blog, they write me this code. It's a tool, but don't make that just be 100% of what you're doing. And so
the internet, these systems don't like laziness. They could smell laziness a mile away, right? 100%. You cannot. I think I'm going to say this from the other side as the brand guy. Like, that doesn't mean have somebody sign up to be your GEO guy and don't ask any questions for 6 months. You need to ask, hey, specifically, what did you do? So one, you're keeping them honest. Two, that you're learning along the way, right? Because unfortunately, I've also seen the other side where, you have a guy who says, I'm going to do this. And then they show you in the first month that they built an agent to write you these articles. It's like, okay, so cool. So how about if you're going to do that, I'll buy the agent from you and I'll just do it that way and do it myself. Why would I pay you to use AI to just write an agent? Like, and that's the other part of this. So Look, it is the Wild West. I think that everybody, at least get a consultation. Matt does a really good job. I've enjoyed working with him. We skip a lot of the BS and kind of just get down to the nitty gritty, which is required nowadays. So tell everybody how to find you, and tell them about some of the companies that you specialize working with and where you see there's the most opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So again, name Matthew Caddy, the Mad Caddy. You can just madcaddy.com or find me on LinkedIn. Easy to find, just Matthew Caddy. We're always about, since it is so new and it is the Wild West, I do take my time meeting with everybody, helping them fully understand it. Someone like Nick, he's good at what he does. He's basically like, we spend 15 minutes. He's like, I got to move on, but someone needs me to, hold their hand. Absolutely. Especially with something so new. The spaces that I see a lot in, is definitely the e-commerce. E-commerce is just, if you're an e-com right now and you don't have a strategy like this right now, like I will literally do a free audit and show you what that looks like, just because you have to see, because it is so important. It'll shock you once you put a strategy in place, how much revenue you have. We've got some brands that are hitting 30x ROI a month right now because they're making all their purchases through the site. So it's things like that, just coming purely from ChatGPT. It's things like that where it does become a new channel that you may have not had, and within 6 months, 9 months, you're now generating enough to make some big decisions at your business. So definitely something to keep in mind. But on the flip side of it, be cautious of the spam emails and everything you're getting about these gurus popping up out of nowhere. Like, we've been there. Don't risk it. Make sure you're asking a lot of good questions and do your own research. You got LLMs now. Ask them if they say something, pop it in there and say, start doing your own research on that.
Yeah, I agree with that. All right, man. Well, look, it's been great, and I think that we're probably going to get some comments and questions. So I think we might have to do a follow-up soon, just with a little bit more Q&A, because I think it is the Wild West. So I appreciate, brother, Matt Caddy, the Mad Caddy. You've been listening to the Marketing Madman, and we'll catch you next time.
Thanks, Nick. Good chatting.
All right, bud.